All right, Ted, make your attack roll.
Not 20. I crit.
You sure did snatch up that die pretty quick. I thought I saw a 4.
Are you calling me a cheater? How do I know what you're rolling behind that sheet? I mean, DM screen.
Well, you know, DMs don't cheat. They fudge dice. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy David. Today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, do you want practical D&D content you can drop right in your game?
If the answer is yes, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
So I think the first thing we should probably start off with and kind of define, and that is what exactly is fudging dice.
So the biggest aspect of this game is that randomness, the rolling of dice, and it dictates the story. It defines the rules with, letting us know whether something is successful or not. But many times, you hear of, DMs or players who just sit there and they roll one thing and they claim something else.
You kind of explained a little bit what the dice represent. I want to dive into that just a little bit more. And it's a role-playing game, right? We're role-playing with each other, but the game aspect is the randomness that the dice generate. They add to the narrative. Otherwise, we could drop the G and we could just make up stories together, right?
Right.
If we weren't relying on the randomness of the dice to kind of tell us what happens. So, as you mentioned, fudging the dice essentially is rolling one thing but calling out a different number.
Absolutely.
And it's not always higher though. I think we need to point that out. It's not always you roll a low number and claim a high number, but you can go the other way too. As a GM, you might roll a nat 20 and be like, "Ooh, that's going to really hurt that player's character, maybe even kill them. I'm going to turn it to a regular hit, or I'm going to turn it into a miss." Now, there's two sides of the DM screen, right, when it comes to fudging the dice. There's the player side, and there's the GM side, the dungeon master. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Okay, well, as you were kind of, mentioning that on the DM side, you have the ability to change things, in either direction. And, I have to say that over the years as a GM, I've altered dice in both directions. It's not something that I, really enjoy doing. I don't really, do it these days, but in the past, I've been like, oh, well, I need to make this battle, more of a challenge than it really has been. Or, the players are walking through my encounters. Well, I'm not having them walk through this one as well. That's a save. And when you're rolling behind the GM screen, you've got that capabilities. Nowadays we tend to roll out in front of everybody, in front of the GM screen. This way everybody sees what's there and they can look, oh, that was a 4. Holy crap. That's going to be a miss. Okay, I'm safe. Whatever. But on the player side, there's a lot of times where, the game that I'm starting now, I've got 7 players. There is 8 foot between, me and the player that's the farthest. I'm not going to be able to see what they roll. I have to rely on, what they tell me is accurate. And it's very easy to be like, okay, I drop a die and no one's looking at what I'm doing, so I'm just going to say it's this.
Well, I do notice that the one player sits right next to you most of the time.
That is not my choice.
Whose motto is, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
That has nothing to do. I don't have any, particularity saying you need to sit there. It's where he chooses.
And that's actually a holdout from when we were recording our games. Because he's a big guy, so we put the big guys
further back,
closest to the GM, so they don't block everyone else out of line of sight. But yes, that is his motto. And that brings us to a really important part. I think most DMs that fudge the dice, they generally claim that it is for the excitement of the game. It is to challenge the players. It is to keep the players from dying. It's ultimately to make the game better is the claim. When the player fudges the dice, it's really just cheating.
There's so many reasons why somebody might choose to do it. But honestly, that it's not up to the player to dictate, when to change a roll. You play the game. You do whatever the die says, and there's lots of things that you can do with a good or a bad roll, depending upon, what's going on.
Good or bad roll, you say, Ted? It's time for us to roll right into the sponsored portion of this video.
All right, so why don't you let us know who is sponsoring this video?
Today we got for you immersive battle maps for your tabletop role-playing games. This thing is sweet. It's super helpful for the GM on the go. What it essentially is, it's a giant book that opens up and you play right in the book instead of unrolling maps. You know, you put your minis, you move them right around. There is nearly 30 different maps that have already been unlocked. You can actually go over to the Kickstarter and check it out. There's a link in the description. And not only is there, you know, all these maps, and really to get the base book, the base product itself right now, it's at just slightly over $1 a map. So I think that's a really great deal. But not only that, they have these vinyl stickers that I absolutely love. They have spell effects, they have dungeon dressing. There's a bunch of different ones to choose from that you can do as add-ons. And I love these things because it's kind of like a nostalgia for me. It makes me think of when I was a kid and we had those vinyl stickers. I believe they're like called color forms or something. And like you had all different ones. Like you had the Marvel ones. Like I had the Spider-Man and the Hulk and you know all that stuff. But really, I really like that. And if you're a GM who's constantly traveling, maybe Adventures League or something, you know, this book is nice and easy. Pick it up, carry it, throw it in your bag, whatever, slap it down. There's tons of different battle maps in there for you to use in your game.
Now, the great thing about this, number one, go check out the Kickstarter, because on that page, there are 2 free maps that you can download. So you can essentially preview this without actually having to spend anything. If you want to get these things only digitally, that is an option as well, so that you can print them out from the glory of your own home. But every book that you buy, if you buy the physical thing, you are going to get them digitally as well. So there is no reason why you shouldn't go check out this Kickstarter page.
You can help support the channel by supporting the sponsors. Go check it out. So let's jump back into Fudging the Dice.
All right, so as I was saying, there's lots of reasons why a player might want to do it, and you touched on, it's impactful to the story, and I want to make it's really necessary that I do this because it's going to save that person's life, or I don't want my character to die because I rolled a bad save. But really, like, are those things that are justifiable for a player to go and do it?
When a player does it, it really most of the time just feels like someone who's trying to not lose at D&D or trying to win D&D. And the only way we win at D&D is by playing the game and having fun. So that doesn't really require you to fudge the dice as a player. Really, when you get those bad rolls, sometimes you just need to own them and roll with it and just have fun with it. And let it dictate the narrative that your character is going to have. Start role-playing those bad rolls instead of groaning and being upset about them. Embrace them.
Now as a GM, you've got the ability to, if I'm rolling behind a screen, you've got the ability to change those dice as well. And briefly we touched on changing a hit into a miss, to not kill a player, or a crit into a regular hit. Especially at low levels, it's super easy to just instantly kill those players, or those characters, not the players, the characters who have, super low hit points. What if somebody, tanks their constitution? Okay, that wizard's got 5 hit points. Okay, how hard is it to do 10 points of damage on a single attack? Not hard at all.
Not only that, though, there is always ways to fudge the game without fudging the dice as well. That's just, the dice are just an easy way to represent the randomness. And as the GM, you do have the ability to take control of that randomness, either by taking it away, essentially. So I'm not sure that that's always the best idea, but it is an option for GMs out there, and some GMs swear by it, other GMs don't. We've all done it, I think, for the most part at some point or another. Especially, I can speak for our tables, and we've more recently moved away from that.
All right, so now what is the real problem with either side of the table saying that I'm going to take it upon myself and adjust the roll?
So I think the real problem is, 1, if you're the player, it is really just cheating. 2, if you're the DM, you're really kind of saying the narrative that the dice have to tell doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You might as well eliminate it and just pick and choose at that point, right? When is it impactful? When is it not? I don't know. I feel like the more impactful events that have happened in our games have been from us allowing the dice to tell their own narrative.
Believe me, I definitely come from some of that more old school thought of I want to win and I want my character to survive. I know I've had characters die, and it's like, man, this sucks, and it could come down to me rolling bad or whatever have you. But ultimately, I've grown as a veteran player and DM, that the dice mechanic, that thing that is super important to this game that we really have to look at, winds up having the ability to tell a super awesome story. When I turn that regular hit into a crit, or when I turn that crit into a miss, no one is going to remember, those things from the GM side or from the player side. It doesn't add anything to. But those times when, you roll a natural 1 on a saving throw and it gets talked about for decades, and it has the ability to inform the future games. When I was a player and I made an intimidation roll, and I thought I didn't have to make a roll because what I said was super awesome, and DM's like, okay, roll it. I roll a 6. Not impactful in any way, shape, or form. Well, you know what? Instead of saying, I'm going to eat your children, I say, I'm going to eat your satchel. It was a monstrous humanoid. Maybe common isn't his thing. Maybe the way he said children just came out, completely indecipherable. And the person's like, what? So
Turns out they didn't have kids. They didn't like their kids.
so you've really got the ability, when you roll bad, number 1, own it. And number 2, turn what's happening in the game into something that reflects the dice. You can't do it all the time because you might be backpedaling all the time, but when the moment really feels like, oh, this is going to be good, and it screws up, go with the screw up and have fun with it.
Well, and not only that too, like when we allow the dice to have their part of the story by not fudging them, not ordering them. For instance, in your game, like you didn't change things to save Mark's character early on, and it caused him to die, right? Well, that created story arc for sessions upon sessions afterwards that weren't anticipated or expected. It created arcs for the characters in the game that no one had planned. It turned what was just supposed to be an encounter into something that was a lot more special, because it had repercussions and ripples throughout the game because a character died unexpectedly. Yeah, it sucks, but at the end of the day, it's a game. You roll up a new character, and you roll with it. But in the meantime, we were able to really, drill down on another story arc that didn't exist.
That wouldn't have been able to happen without the dice, without multiple failures of death saves, without, consecutive, failed medicine checks, adding to the player saying, I didn't buy a medicine kit. All of these things, was new for us playing 5th edition.
And that one was involved somewheres.
So with these things, it created something that, became great. It becomes something that we get to continue talking about and sharing. None of us that are involved look back and say, man, I wish Mark's character had survived. Like, it didn't happen. The player decided, well, I want to play this character's brother and make a slight change. And, it became fun. And all of us enjoyed that moment, despite it leading from a character dying.
Exactly. Here's the thing. If you're a dice fudging GM or dungeon master, one of the keys and secrets to this is you must never let your players know, because if you do, you're taking away from the narrative. You're taking away their agency in the game, essentially. If they're being constrained to making rolls that are going to reflect how the game works and operates, but you're not under those same constraints, you're going to have disgruntled players. So if you are doing this, one, I don't think you should do it all the time, and it's a tool that's better used if you use it sparingly if you're going to do it. And then the other thing is, don't let your players know ever.
Yeah, it's just so much safer to just keep it low key And it's not for after. It's not for I'll tell them when the campaign's over. No, as a GM, you might have players that come back to your table time and time again, and that's one of those things. Just it's a pill, swallow it. That's your style. That's on you, and it never need be mentioned anywhere.
For us at our table, the dice have their own narrative to tell. We enjoy that randomness and rolling with whatever happens. And, it's a journey to get there, but that's how we play the game. Now, we recommend it, but you can play the game however you want. Whatever works at your table is absolutely fine.
So let us know what you think or how you play this at your table. If you're a GM, you might want to, keep it low key. But down in the comments, share what you think. Share your awesome stories one way or the other.
On your way down to the comments, hit up that description where you can find the Kickstarter immersive battle maps for tabletop role-playing games. Go check out the Kickstarter. That thing is funded 1,800% and going. It's unlocking stretch goals as we speak. You're gonna want to at least give it a look.
So like, share, subscribe.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.